The bus hissed as it came to a stop, its doors groaning open like a sigh. Mia stepped off into the cold drizzle of Elmsworth, clutching her suitcase like a lifeline. The streets were nearly empty, just wet cobblestones, shuttered shops, and the occasional flicker of movement behind old curtains. Crow cawed overhead. Ominous. Fitting. Her grandmother's house stood at the end of a narrow, overgrown lane. It looked more like a haunted cottage than a fresh start. The ivy had swallowed most of the front, and the paint peeled like it was shedding skin. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and memories. Old photos stared at her from the walls. Her as a child on the porch, her grandmother in her garden, and one of her parents she hadn't seen in years. The floorboards creaked under her step like they were warning her. This house remembers everything. That night the storm hit hard. Wind howled through the cracks in the windows, and lightning threw shadows across the room. She sat on the floor wrapped in a blanket, reading the only letter her grandmother left behind. It was short, scribbled in shaky handwriting.
This place has seen heartbreak, Mia. But it can also hold healing. Let it.
Just then a knock came at the door, sharp, urgent. Her heart leapt. Who could possibly be out there in a storm like this? She hesitated, then opened it. A man stood there, drenched, bleeding from the forehead.
"I'm sorry,"
he said, breathless.
"I think I've been in an accident. Can I use your phone?"
And just like that, her quiet escape turned into something much more complicated. He said his name was Noah, but beyond that, Mia got little else. He barely flinched as she cleaned the gash on his forehead, just nodded when she asked questions, offering vague answers.
"I was driving. Lost control on the bend near the cliff. My phone's dead. I saw the light from your window."
His voice was gravelly, calm. Too calm for someone who had just survived a near-fatal crash. There was something strange about him, something unreadable. His clothes were worn but not cheap. His hands were calloused, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the world like he'd seen it all, and was waiting for it to show him something new. When the storm knocked out the power, they sat in the candlelight, shadows dancing across the old wallpaper. Mia offered him a cup of tea. He declined. Instead, he studied the photographs on the mantel.
"You used to live here?"
He asked. Mia hesitated.
When I was little. It was safer then.
"Doesn't feel safe now?"
He asked, but his tone was more observation than question. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because honestly she didn't know. He stayed the night, on the couch against her better judgment. She couldn't sleep, not really. Every creak of the old house made her flinch. She didn't know if it was the storm or the stranger downstairs. But in the morning he was gone. No note. No footprints in the mud. Just a single item left behind on the coffee table. A pocket knife engraved with the initials in AV. Later that day, at the town's only diner, she asked the waitress if anyone named Noah lived nearby. The woman frowned, then whispered.
"Noah Vance? He used to. But he died in a car accident on the Cliff Road. 2 years ago."
Mia hadn't stopped thinking about him. About Noah. About the night he disappeared without a trace, vanishing like a ghost who only wanted warmth for one stormy night. She tried to dismiss it. Maybe he gave her a fake name. Maybe she imagined it all. But the engraved pocketknife still sat on her table, cold and real and unanswered. Weeks passed. The town remained quiet. Too quiet. Her days were filled with fixing broken things, the shutters, the fence, her sleep schedule. But the silence in the house had started whispering to her. Sometimes, she woke up certain someone had been watching her through the window. And one night, she found the kitchen door wide open. She never forgot to lock it. Then one afternoon, while cleaning the attic, she found an old newspaper tucked behind a loose panel. The front page showed a photo of Noah Vance, the same eyes, same half-smile, and a headline that read, "Local carpenter dies in cliffside crash. Body never found." Her skin went cold. 100 questions crashed through her at once. Was he a ghost? A con man? Someone pretending to be dead? But one feeling overpowered them all: she missed him. That night, unable to sleep, she stood on the porch wrapped in her grandmother's blanket. The stars were clearer than she remembered. And then, just past the trees at the edge of her property, she saw him, Noah, standing there, watching her. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat.
I waited until you weren't afraid.
He said softly, stepping into the moonlight. She didn't move.
What are you?
He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph, one she hadn't seen in years. It was of her as a little girl, standing next to her grandmother. Behind them, barely visible in the background, was him, Noah.
I've always been here,
he said.
You just didn't remember.
Mia staggered back, her mind spinning.
Why me?
She asked, her voice breaking. His eyes softened.
Because you needed to know what it feels like to be loved, even if it came wrapped in mystery.
And then he was gone again, vanished into the trees like mist. The next morning, Mia tore through every drawer, every box, every forgotten photo album. She needed answers. She found one. In her grandmother's journal, wedged between recipes and garden notes, there was a passage dated 15 years ago.
He came again. The boy with the sad smile. He asked about Mia. Said he would protect her. I think he's not from this world, but he's not here to hurt her. He said she would need him one day. I believe him.
Mia dropped the journal. Her heart pounded like thunder. Was this all planned? Had her grandmother known Noah? Had she kept it from her? She stepped outside, the wind rustling the trees like they too were whispering secrets. The edges of her world were starting to fray. She felt it, like the line between reality and something older, something deeper, was thinning. At the town library she searched the archives. Noah Vance had lived in Elmsworth. He was a skilled carpenter. Quiet. Kind. Died in 2008. The death report was strange. No body, no wreckage, just a smashed guardrail and a wallet found near the cliff. Locals said the fog was thick that night. Some said he was running from something. Others said he'd never really left. That evening, Mia sat alone on the porch again. She whispered to the wind, not sure who was listening.
If you're out there, I want to understand.
He came. Not like before. Not out of the trees or shadows, but beside her, sudden as breath.
Why now?
She asked.
Why me?
He looked tired, like the years had weighed differently on him.
Because you're the first person who saw me and didn't run. Because your grandmother asked me to watch over you.
Mia's throat tightened.
You knew her?
He nodded.
She saved me once. Brought me in when the world forgot me. I owed her a promise. To make sure the world never forgot you.
Was. Then, so softly it hurt, he said.
And I stayed long after the promise ended.
She looked at him, the way the moonlight framed his face, the sorrow in his eyes, the quiet love that wrapped around every word he said.
I don't care what you are.
She whispered.
I just need to know if this is real.
He reached out, fingertips brushing hers. Warm.
I'm as real as your grief. And as real as the way you make me feel human again.
And for the first time since she arrived in Elmsworth, she didn't feel alone. The air was heavy with summer warmth, but Mia felt a chill she couldn't shake. Ever since Noah confessed the truth, that he'd stayed not out of obligation, but out of love, something inside her had changed. The ache she'd carried for so long was quieter now. But her heart was louder. She wanted to ask him everything. What he remembered. What he was. Whether he could stay. But every time she tried, he'd change the subject. Distract her. Smile in that sad way, like he knew something she didn't. The house felt alive again. She painted the walls, planted flowers out front. Townspeople began stopping by, bringing homemade pies, tools, laughter. The warmth that had once been lost was blooming again. And always, at the edges of her day, was Noah. But he never came too close to town. Never entered sunlight fully. Never stayed long past midnight. One night, as fireflies lit the backyard like stars fallen to earth, Mia finally asked him,
Are you going to disappear again?
Noah looked at her and this time didn't look away.
There's a cost to staying where I don't belong,
He said.
Every time I linger, the line between your world and mine bends. Things slip through. Things that shouldn't.
As if on cue, a gust of cold wind swept through the trees, though the night was still. The porch light flickered. And from the forest, a low sound, like something groaning beneath the earth.
What did you bring with you?
Mia whispered. He stepped closer.
Nothing. But love anchors things. And the dead aren't meant to be anchored.
Tears stung her eyes.
You said you loved me.
I do.
He said.
That's why I have to let go.
She reached for him, desperate, but her hands passed through him like mist.
No.
He gasped. His form began to shimmer, the edges of him unraveling like fog at dawn.
I was never here to haunt you, Mia.
He said softly.
I was here to remind you what love can feel like. What you deserve. You don't need me. You never did.
The wind howled. The flowers Mia had planted bent low. Her hair whipped across her face as she screamed.
Don't leave me alone again!
But then a whisper.
You're not alone. You're loved.
And he was gone. 1 year later, Mia stood at the edge of the cliff, where the guardrail had once broken. A single wildflower bloomed through the cracks. She held the pocket knife in her hand. Behind her, someone called out. It was a new neighbor, a kind-eyed carpenter who just moved into town. He asked about her house, smiled in a familiar way. And as she smiled back, the wind carried a whisper she swore she imagined.
I told you, you were never alone.